to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. It is Thursday, January 21st, or so they tell me.
I've not changed clothes.
It has been a long 4 days. No, we're back again. We're the Fantasy Footballers. We're going to get into the second half of the running backs. We broke down the truth about running backs.
You got to know the truth.
On Tuesday. And so we're back again. We're going to break down some more of the in-between names. These are names that I love talking about because there's more projection, conjecture, all that stuff with these names. Interesting guys to reflect on. I will say this. We are recording this show early, so if some insane breaking news happens and we don't talk about it, that's why. We are out of town this week. We're at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Conference.
So if you're there, well, I guess if you're hearing this on Thursday,
It's in Dallas.
we are still around. So
That's true.
maybe.
So come find us, I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know.
Maybe we hung out last night.
Just look around in Dallas.
It was good to see you.
It was good to see you. So we got that going on in the show today. If you want to check out the website, you can. It's easy. TheFantasyFootballers.com. We've got lots of good information on there. You can learn about the show, listen to the show, check out all the segments, the videos, and things like that. Check us out on Twitter. If you want to follow the show Twitter page, it's at the FFBallers. But, you know, if there's one of us you hate and you want to follow the other two, you can follow Mike at FFHitman.
If you want hot takes on the new Superman commercials,
Yeah, well,
follow me on Twitter.
There you go. Jason at JasonFFL, and I'm at Andy Holloway. We were just talking about those commercials before the show. They were so weird to me.
Do you bleed? You will.
I mean, the Batman voice just gets me all the time, right?
Swear to me.
Yeah, it just always kind of gets me because, and it's normally prolific actors in the role, so you just kind of know what they normally sound like, so it just messes with me a little bit. But the whole marketing campaign for that movie,
With the short
I don't even know what
cuts.
it is. I don't know what it is. It's just
Well, that's what they're trying to have some mystery. Some
I love
intrigue.
that if that's the case. But if it's what they've shown me so far, I'm not sure I'm into it.
Yeah, it's. I believe in Zack Snyder, so
That's
Yeah,
exactly
it's
why
gonna
I'm.
be a great movie, and Superman wins.
I don't know.
Yeah, because Jason's Superman.
I don't know if I've talked about this on the show. I know I talked. There's been somewhere where I've talked about it. This is not football, so I'll go real quickly. But I had this thought process of like, how can Batman possibly compete with Superman?
Thank you.
But here's what you break down. Who is Batman? Batman is super wealthy, has futuristic technology, and is very smart. And those three things. Who is that? Oh, that's Lex Luthor, the Superman arch nemesis. So if Lex Luthor can keep up, then Batman probably can too. In this world of craziness.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if the
Told
box
you, Batman hot takes.
Yeah,
At
so-
FF Hitman.
Quick question of the day. I want to break down our projections, our predictions for this week. And Jason, you did want to mention some playoff challenge stuff too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to see how you guys were doing in the playoff challenge. I started the first week. I've never done this before. I punted the first week. I had almost nobody. I think I had two players. I was like almost dead last in our 3,000. I think I was in the 2,900s because I scored no points that first week. Coming in this last week, I had almost everyone on 2 times. So let's see here. Right now, I think
Who's your high score this past week?
This high score this last week was Carson Palmer. Had 42 points. Got
That
the
is
2
nice.
times. And I had Michael Floyd. Unfortunately, I did not have Michael Floyd on the times 2 because he was my Antonio Brown replacement. Thanks, Vontez Perfect.
I made the mistake of changing Michael Floyd out for Martavis Bryant moments before the games, which Bryant was fine. He had 19 points, but I would have had Floyd roll into next week. And my high score was C.J. Anderson, and he rolls into next week at 3 times.
Yeah.
But I had a terrible week. My team is terrible, and I'm going to lose.
Yep.
I also had Floyd. I didn't even remember I plugged him in.
Listen to the hot score that the Kansas City Chiefs defense got me on 2 times. 0. I got 2 times. 2 times 0.
Way to update that roster.
That's funny.
Well, I wasn't going to update it.
I
had him on 2 times.
I got 22 points from the Denver Broncos.
All right. Well,
and I get 3 times coming.
well, why don't I
against
give a
Patriots.
I should give a shout out to the leader of the group of
Who's
over
winning?
3,500. It is Tinkin00. TENKIN00, who this past week had Aaron Rodgers, Eddie Lacy, Jonathan Stewart, who had, and these were all on 2 times, Randall Cobb, Larry Fitzgerald, Rob Gronkowski, Mason Crosby, and Green Bay Packers. So that is a monster week.
I think losing,
but they're losing about 5 Packers.
Losing the quarterback for the multiplier is that's
a tough one. So, all right, projections for or predictions more so for this week's NFC and AFC title games, guys. Who's going to win these games?
I have been a Denver to the Super Bowl from the AFC guy. New information. Got to go with the Patriots. Denver does not look like their offense can get it done. And if the
you're changing from Broncos to Seattle. You're not going with Seattle anymore.
I am also pulling Seattle. But I'm saying, like, I have Denver. And so, like, I could just say, oh, I'm sticking with my pick. But I think that the Patriots are going to beat that Denver team.
There you go.
And NFC, sorry, I'm going with the Cardinals. Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
All right, Jason, you had the Patriots and the Panthers before the playoffs began.
Oh, they're still alive.
And I'm going to stick with them as much as it pains me to pick Carolina. Oh, trust me, I know. But the truth is, I don't think any team is going to beat Carolina in Carolina. They're too good.
They're good.
And
what about second half Carolina, though? Could they get the second half team to play in the first half?
Then they could definitely win.
That'd be sweet.
And I don't see the Patriots slowing down. I'm actually really, if that happens, I will be heartbroken for a little while that the Cardinals didn't get there. However, I'd be really excited to watch that Carolina Panthers, New England Patriots Super Bowl. That would be a good game.
So before the playoffs began, I had the Broncos and Cardinals in the Super Bowl. So both are still alive. And I'm going to go ahead and take both this week. I think that New England, they're great. If this game was at home, I wouldn't even think about it. The fact it's in Denver, the fact that the Denver defense can make opportunistic plays, I'm going to give them a shot. It's going to have to be, and it's just amazing that we get to watch Brady and Manning again. It's just an incredible thing. I don't care what the dynamics are of how these guys play.
Well,
we get to play it. We get to watch them again.
Yeah, it is still Brady Manning. I'm with you, Andy.
in name.
No.
In name.
No.
In actuality.
No. This is Brady versus Manning. Great television. And at the end of this game, it's going to come down to whether or not Peyton Manning, the Peyton Manning, can hang with Tom Brady. It's still going to be that kind of drama. It's going to be great.
So I will say
cannot.
this. I know how to beat Carolina, so I'm going to give Bruce Arians a call.
Great.
I know how to beat him. You stop the run on first down. That is what I believe. I believe if you stop the run, they struggled without Jonathan Stewart, and they struggled in the second half when they couldn't run the ball. I think you have to stop the run. That's my prediction.
Jonathan Stewart tweaked his foot.
I noticed him limping off.
Yeah. So
for not that I'm excited about that as a Cardinal fan. I just want a straight up victory. But all right, let's move on to let's get back into the running backs.
let's do it.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
All right. On Tuesday, we got into the top 10 guys: Devontae Freeman, Adrian Peterson, Doug Martin, D. Will, Todd Gurley, Lamar Miller, David Johnson, Chris Ivory, Matt Forte, and Latavius Murray. So those were the top 10 finishers, and you can go back and listen to that show if you want to hear us break down what we think about them for next year. But we're going to move on now, and we're going to get through as many as we can.
I'm very excited
And we're going to talk right off the bat.
for number 11.
Mighty Mouse himself, Danny Woodhead. Danny
right.
Woodhead was the number 11 running back.
I got a question for you. In
Say what?
standard,
Say what?
In standard, no, don't change it.
I already knew what it was. I just wanted to confirm.
What is he in PPR?
Like 4 or something
No,
stupid.
okay. If I remember right, he was number 3.
You
According
are
to
correct.
fantasydata.com.
Number 3. Danny Woodhead was the third best runner. Here's who he was better than: Doug Martin, Lamar Miller, D'Angelo Williams, Matt Forte, Todd Gurley, David Johnson, all those guys.
I bet he was better than everyone but 2.
Yes, you are correct.
That is insane, and he's a perfect example of
I
why
love it.
I think Mike likes Bilal Powell and those type of guys, because they just find a way.
And
And you know what? when you win with Danny Woodhead, it's such a slap in the face to your opponent. They
It-
go, Danny Woodhead beat me this week again.
It might be tooting, but I drafted Danny Woodhead everywhere this year, and I drafted him in the 9th round, 8th round. It was glorious until the middle of the season when it kind of fell apart.
I was going to say, it's really a tale of two seasons
Yes.
for Danny Woodhead. He
Three.
Yeah, really, truly a
Was,
tale
wait, you're
of three
counting that
seasons.
one game as a third
No,
season?
he
Well, it's a
finished
sandwich.
the last 3 games of the year. He was still great. Had double digits in each of those games. 35 in that one crazy
When Gordon
game.
went out and they had to stop their Melvin Gordon experiments.
Well, clearly the number for Danny Woodhead that we need to pay attention to is 107 targets. It's not 97 carries. He's averaged 3.5 a carry, only 3 touchdowns on the ground. But, 107 targets, 6 touchdowns through the passing game. He was the 14th most consistent player. And when we talk about consistency, we're talking about 3 numbers. How many times did they finish in the top 25? He did that 8 times. How many times did he finish in the top 5? Twice. And then how many times did he not really give you a performance that would have been better than anybody on the waiver wire? And that was 2 times. So he pooped his pants twice. So what in the world is Danny Woodhead next year?
It's a very, very good question.
And I will put insurance salesman as an option.
What was Ken Wisenhunt?
Which is so disrespectful to a really good player.
Yeah, I mean,
Ken Wisenhunt was there for Danny Woodhead's.
2 years ago.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because last year Danny Woodhead had the broken leg. I can't recall if the year before that it was Ken Wisenhunt when Danny Woodhead was awesome as well for fantasy.
I believe it was.
I'm going to look it up. I'll
Yeah.
look it up. You guys talk.
But-
that. So here's what Danny Woodhead's season was, and this is looking forward. What we've got to kind of keep in mind. So he was one of our favorite sleepers for the fantasy footballers coming into the season because we knew he's a great pass catching back. The opportunity would be there, and he started off great. I mean, week after week after week, he was reliable. In the first 9 weeks, there were only 2 games under double digits. He was utilized in the team when they were healthy, but then something strange happened. They go to their bye week, and when they came back from their bye week, they decided we are not going to use Danny Woodhead in any way, shape, or form the same fashion that we had been using. We are going to focus on Melvin Gordon.
Which makes perfect sense.
for
to me.
real life NFL.
because
Because
they're
their bye
out.
week was a good bye week. I mean, it was like a farewell to the playoffs, and we're gonna change the transition of the direction.
Yes, it was a good bye week, and they were done, so they had to check out what they have in Melvin Gordon. And so for the next month, those 4 games following that bye, he had no weeks in double digits. In fact, 3 of the 4 weeks he had less than 5 points, so he was worthless. Then Melvin Gordon gets injured, goes out, and he comes back to kind of superstardom. So he is a really hard guy to really wrap your hands around because on one hand, I want to say, look, they decided to go away from him. They didn't use him towards the end of the year. It took injuries to every offensive weapon to get Daniel Woodhead back on the field. But then I think, well, really, when they were not playing for let's look at the future and they were starting the year, he was an integral part of that game on passing downs. And why wouldn't he be this next year? So it's
I got
really
2 really good questions for you guys
great.
to put this in perspective. The first one is, and I want you to think about it. Don't just react because I know he finished number 11. Would you have wanted Danny Woodhead on your team this year? That's question number 1. And number 2, do you want him on your team next year?
Number 1, yes, because he was great for me when I used him.
Didn't fantasy owners then put? Look, I was waiting for the shoe to drop on him. So were you. You traded him for C.J. Anderson in the middle of the season because we were waiting for the shoe to drop.
Well,
so the question is if you were an owner that counted on him, he didn't deliver when you needed him to. So that's why I asked the question.
when I traded Woodhead, that was because I was trading for the upside of what I thought could be C.J. Anderson. It wasn't necessarily that I thought Woodhead would be bad.
But what's the upside of a guy who at that time was probably number 3 in the league? I mean, you gave up on Danny Woodhead.
I didn't give up on him. I traded him for what I thought C.J. Anderson would. I didn't think Danny Woodhead was a top 5 running back.
You certainly thought he was going to drop off. Otherwise, you don't trade a guy who was top 3, right?
I thought C.J. Anderson would be better. It wasn't that I had a problem with Danny Woodhead. Do I want him on my team next year? Absolutely. He's going to be a guy you can draft super late. ninth round again, and the potential is there. It may not work out next year. So I looked it up. Ken Wisenhunt was there in 2013. That was the good Danny Woodhead.
He
year.
had 6 receiving touchdowns again that year. He had 400-something yards in the
So
ground.
for that kind of potential, a guy you're drafting in the ninth round.
So it's value.
Every-
I mean,
every time.
It's impossible to argue the value of it. But Jason, answer those 2 questions.
Yeah, I have to say, not being reactionary and actually thinking, if I was an owner, I would still have wanted him on my team. It is because of the value, because where I got him, he was going to be 9th, 10th, even later this previous year where we drafted him. You could get him very, very late. This coming year, I expect you're going to get him super late again. 8th, 9th round is where you're going to get a guy who really, we know there's been his last 2 healthy years, he has been an RB1.
Yep.
So you've got to not sour on him too much. And honestly, it's good news for next year that he had that stretch after the bye where they were trying to see what they had in Melvin Gordon, because his value is going to drop in this year's draft again.
All right, the next 2 guys on our list are Frank Gore and Darren McFadden. Now, the things that stick out to me, we'll talk about both guys, but Darren McFadden was the actual number 5 most consistent running back this year. Okay, he had 11 top 25 performances.
Number 5?
It says 5th. 5th most consistent, Darren McFadden, right there.
Consistent.
Top
I was looking
11
at Frank. I thought we were talking
11
about
top
Frank Gore.
25 performances.
Sorry.
He had 1 top 5, and he had 1 dud game. Now, Gore was the 15th most consistent, right around where he finished. We'll wait to get into McFadden, but I don't know how much that speaks about McFadden and how much that speaks about, hey, the consistency level of a Dallas running back is going to be blank. It's going to be right in this zone. But Frank Gore, 260 for 967 and 6, by far the worst yards per carry he's ever had in his career. 58 targets. Another guy that's hard to analyze because of age mixed with the offense losing Andrew Luck. There's not a lot that I project forward for Frank Gore in terms of success next year. Doesn't mean I wouldn't draft him. It just means that the guy is getting older. He showed all the signs of getting older this year. He showed injury, Pagano beat up from the feet up. What are your guys' thoughts on Frank Gore? This is a guy who really didn't take advantage of good matchups or anything like that.
He
finished 12, so
he's a guy that I would still draft. He's not going to be banished next year. It's in the middle rounds. I'm fine taking him. The Colts will have to address the running back position if that's bringing back Bradshaw. What was Bradshaw's injury? I don't even remember what happened this year because he gets hurt every single year.
I thought he broke a bone or something.
He probably did. But they have to do something.
No, they don't, because they have Ryan Grigson as the general manager still. They are bringing him back, so they do not need to address the running back position.
Coming to the Indianapolis Colts in the first round, another wide receiver.
No, I hear T-Rich can be signed.
He's a free agent. That's true.
Frank Gore had a bad hand dealt to him this year. You talk about the fact that he had his worst production, and I was a Frank Gore owner in our league of record the entire year, had him pretty much from week 2 on, and watched his games, and I still saw juice. I didn't see a guy that couldn't run well. He bursted off some good runs when he needed to. He had a couple just absurd fumbles on the goal line that were
that was weird.
You take those bizarro, like, I'm just throwing the ball away moments out, and I think our view of him turns out better than he was already an RB1. But with Andrew Luck going out and all their quarterback woes and their offensive line woes, I don't think you could have expected more from Frank Gore this year. And so his average draft position should fall pretty dramatically this year. He's a year older, and people were scared of him already because of age. He was beat up. And so, yeah, I think he's going to fall too far. He's going to be a guy that's going to be on a lot of my teams next year, depending on what they do at running back.
The Colts, 24th in the league in points, 28th in yards, 22nd in passing yards, 29th in rushing yards. This was not an offense that could move the ball with that Andrew Luck.
And
so
he was
to
an
speak
RB1.
to your point, here's the difference between him and like Latavius Murray, right? Because you could make similar arguments for them. 6 touchdowns on the ground. It's very low for the guy who gets all the carries.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that will be thrown out there, which has been thrown out there for far too long, maybe. But again, you can't not throw it out there. Every year he gets older.
Yeah.
He'll be 33.
That's
and they
ancient.
showed from the beginning of the year, if they had the ability to use somebody else, they tried to use Josh Robinson before they cut him, but they took load off of Gore. I don't see any reason why they would, with Andrew Luck coming back, give Gore more of a workload. So there will always be that.
There will be a limited ceiling, I think, for Frank Gore. But if he drops, to where he's being, the 25th, 28th running back taken, I mean, I'm going to do a backflip. I'd love to have him.
Sure, that makes sense. So Darren McFadden, Mike, I know he's your favorite player in the league. So tell me everything about Darren McFadden.
Darren McFadden, workload and targets. He had 53 targets, and we've seen that the Dallas offensive
Did he
line,
really average 4.6 a carry this year?
Yeah, he was good.
Wow, he really was.
He was good. And the Dallas offensive line absolutely plays a part in that. I mean, we saw them make Joseph Randle at the beginning of the year look halfway decent. And
last 3 games of the year for McFadden, 6.2 a carry, 5.9 a carry, 7.7 a carry.
That's ridiculous, man. I mean, like,
he did look like he maintained,
so
his juice all year.
Let's say moving forward,
he's only 28.
Darren McFadden is the guy on he's the main running back on that team with Tony Romo, with Des Bryant. Dude, give me Darren McFadden.
Sure.
The Dallas running back was one of the biggest topics of conversation this offseason, because everyone assumed that they would do something in the draft, and they picked up Darren McFadden off the free agent scrap pile, and they turned him into a fantasy stud. So you fix the equation of the offense. They already have a pretty decent defense. I mean, Darren McFadden would be great.
Yeah, I don't see them addressing the running back position in any major way. There's going to be, every time you talk about a free agent running back, the question is going to be, is he going to go to Dallas? When you talk about a rookie running back, it's going to be, is Dallas going to grab him because of that offensive line and the ability? But Jerry Jones doesn't need to address their running back position because they have a guy who proved, I mean, it wasn't a short stint. Their bye was in week 6, and from that bye on, he was the guy, and he only had 2 games under 10 fantasy points, and those were 9s.
It's just one of those things. Jerry Jones and the word need don't often mix together. So it's one of those things where I would not be surprised. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I would not be surprised if they took a running back high because they believe they want to maximize. There's a difference between looking at the numbers. Well, Darren McFadden did really well. Well, are we maximizing this ultra offensive line potential or not?
Right. I just see the pride.
Derrick Henry, number 4, Dallas. I'm not putting that. Just throwing it out there. It could happen. He likes the names.
Maybe, but Dallas the last couple years has actually been smart in their draft. The chips were all lining up for Johnny Manziel to be drafted in the first round by the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones was able to hold him.
He said he wanted him, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He wanted to draft Manziel.
He can get him this year.
But my point is that he made the right football decision, and he's been making the right football decision.
But the right football decision might be to get the best running back you can get for that offensive line.
I don't see Darren McFadden holding up through another season at 29. Getting someone else in there is a good football decision, but the pride of Jerry Jones
they're going to be a
say,
good team next year.
So the question,
they're going to be a really good team. Their defense was really good.
The only analysis we can do on Darren McFadden is a hypothetical.
Wait and see.
Yeah, yes, but if he's back as the lead guy and they've done pretty much nothing, they brought in a backup.
He's the perfect running back to draft when you decide you want to go wide receiver early, because his consistency level was so high.
Do you think you're going to be able to?
He will be.
He will not be a first round pick.
No.
I mean, he's somebody who you could go wide receiver early and get back in the 3rd round.
I would say he'll be back of a second, top of the 3rd. To me, that's
if
where I would.
Status quo.
If status quo doesn't change, I think he might be first.
No.
Why? I mean, he doesn't even finish. He's not even a top 12 back. He's a 13th back.
Well, he wasn't a featured back.
Yeah, the first.
You can't be a first round pick.
No. I mean, okay, 2nd round is probably more realistic, but I think people are going to be really high if it stays status quo.
Okay. Jeremy Hill's number 14 on the list. Oh, Jeremy Hill. You were given a footy for the most disappointing player. The most disappointing season. The Footy Award winner, Jeremy Hill. 223 for 794, and that was the problem. He got the same amount of carries as last year, which, by the way, we thought would go up. He only averaged 3.6 a carry. He looked like a guy who lost confidence at multiple points in the season, barely caught anything through the passing game, and he was the 18th most consistent running back, but he pooped your team on several important weeks. That was the problem. Yes, look, he finished 14. That's the silver lining is, hey, he ended up here.
11 touchdowns will do that.
If Jeremy Hill was drafted where Danny Woodhead was, we'd all be singing his praises. But he wasn't drafted there.
That's very valid. I feel like I want all of my analysis of Jeremy Hill right now to simply be fart sounds with my mouth because I was that disappointed with Jeremy Hill. Now, speaking to him moving forward next year, I'll probably be back on the Jeremy Hill train. You at least won't have to pay up as early to draft him. If you just watching the tape, you can see that it's still there, the mojo that he had, but for a large part of the year, he's doing these shimmies and these salsa dances in the backfield instead of just saying one read, I will plant and I will go, like he was doing in his rookie year. You plant and go. If it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. And he was not happy with that. He was going Chris Johnson from the Titans, if you remember that, where it was all or nothing for Chris Johnson. And that's basically the mentality that Jeremy Hill was going with.
He also didn't play well against top 16 defenses. He had 9 points a game against them compared to 13 against bottom teams, which makes a lot of sense. He's kind of the run-out-the-clock guy for that team. And Gio Bernard had a good year. He had a good start to the year and really changed their perspective on who they were going to use.
On the year, Gio Bernard actually led the running backs in snaps. He had 55%. Jeremy Hill only had 43% of the snaps. Last 4 weeks of the season, Jeremy Hill ended up with, it's basically a complete swap. It's Jeremy Hill had 56% of the snaps and Gio had 41%. Now, we don't know how much of that is the fact that, Andy Dalton was gone, and so they were more of a running team versus a passing team, and cold weather games now became a factor. But I think we're going to see essentially a lot more of what we saw this year, next year from them, where it's going to be near a 50-50 split on carries, on at least on snaps, if not carries. And so where Jeremy Hill is going to be drafted next year, assuming it's much lower than where he was drafted this year, I'm okay taking him there.
There's plenty of good check boxes by Jeremy Hill. He's young. He's on a good offense. He's on a good team. He's shown the ability to do it.
He's the touchdown guy.
Yeah. What it should show is should be a cautionary tale in taking a guy's first year, projecting it forward to infinite glory, and then seeing what happens. I mean, this was before the season. Is he the next Marshawn Lynch? No,
Right.
Not yet.
Have we confirmed that Giovanni Bernard is still alive?
No.
After
Yeah.
that.
Well,
after that
remember,
hit?
he got up and was running. He ran back to the
I forgot that hit was bad.
Oh.
All right, Mark Ingram is number 15 on the list. He's a guy who has question marks because, look, he wouldn't have been 15 if he hadn't gotten hurt. So, I mean, he had 12 games played. He was really good.
12 games and number 15.
Sure.
That's great.
769 yards on the ground with a good average, 6 touchdowns. And here's the difference maker because we didn't expect it. You saw Spiller come into the offense. You thought, look, I love Mark Ingram next year. Let me put it that way because he had 50 catches.
Yes.
In 12 games.
Yeah.
50 catches.
Mark Ingram was
He's their
never
guy.
utilized
He's their guy.
that way. And when you look at the snap counts as to how the team used Mark Ingram, he was on the field 70+% of the time, which is incredible for Mark Ingram, a guy who, they used 3 backs, and they used 3 backs on the year. They used 3 backs even when Ingram was out there. You don't think that Mark Ingram got 70+% of snaps, and he did. And when he went down and Hightower came back in, it was more like 50%. It wasn't, even though Hightower had a great game, they love Ingram. And I was a little worried because of all the possibilities of Drew Brees having to leave because of money, Sean Payton being traded. But it looks like there's going to be continuity coming back next year. Mark Ingram looked really, really good, very reliable. And because he's catching the ball, he's game flow, safe.
Love Mark Ingram. Love him.
What I like about Mark Ingram, let me read you what he was averaging. So against top 16 run defenses, he was only averaging 48 yards on the ground. Against bottom 16, 80 yards on the ground. There's a big difference right there. However, against top 16 rushing defenses, he would average 44 receiving yards as opposed to 24 receiving yards against bottom. So they didn't care. The Saints were going to get Mark Ingram the ball. He was going to give them production, and he was essentially even across the board as fantasy points are concerned because he would split the difference with receiving yards. So he's just I like Mark Ingram a lot next year.
The proof's in the pudding. The 4th highest consistency ranking, despite missing those games, finishing number 15 overall. That's the number you need to pay attention to. You put him in your lineup, and that's what you do. You leave him in there.
Yep.
Because he still showed me everything we needed to see this year.
All-purpose yards. He basically got 100 yards a game, and then he was also a touchdown option. So
I'd rather let me ask you this: Mark Ingram or Doug Martin?
Doug Martin, because as a number one, it depends on where you're going to have to take him. But I want high potential from my number one. For me, my number two. If I can have Mark Ingram as an RB2,
and those guys were back-to-back in consistency ranking, and there's no reason why.
A factor of this to me is Kyrie Robinson. Kyrie Robinson was the backup for Mark Ingram until he got hurt. He had a pretty devastating leg injury, and he's a free agent.
He won't be back.
But that's the question is, Kyrie Robinson was a touchdown vulture. If the backup is Hightower, I don't think there'll be as much touchdown vulturing going on. I think it'll be Ingram.
I don't know. I think they teams just do that. You know what I mean?
But they were doing it frequently with Kyrie Robinson, where I believe that they would roll more with Ingram. To me, that's how I see it. So if Kyrie Robinson is gone, and I have to look at that question
he
of
did
Doug
vulture
Martin,
4. He vultured 4 touchdowns.
If it's Mark Ingram versus Doug Martin, and Robinson is gone, it's Mark Ingram for me.
Mark Ingram, David Johnson.
Assuming David Johnson is
and obviously you're locked into this decision for the rest of the option. You don't get any options to change your mind.
I'd probably go with David Johnson.
If Chris Johnson's gone, as I suspect he would, I would.
There are a lot of leagues drafting this week for 2016.
That's tough. Those guys will be very close for me.
All right, number 16 is Jonathan Stewart. 17 is LaShawn McCoy, so we'll talk about him. Jonathan Stewart's a guy who I am rising on for next year.
Yeah.
I really am. He's a great player. He was mostly healthy this year. He let you down when you needed him most, which was getting hurt during the playoffs. I think he would have played had it not been their situation in the standings. That being said, he was very consistent when he was healthy. Well, I guess not that consistent. We have him at 22.
Well, if you remember
that's not very far from where he finished.
The beginning of the year was pretty rough. If you remember,
Jason and I made that trade, and I felt like an idiot.
Oh yeah, it was a straight up trade. Frank Gore for Jonathan Stewart. I got Frank Gore.
Cutting Jonathan Stewart.
Yeah,
because he was disappointing at the beginning of the year.
Well, he'd get you, 40, 50, maybe 60 yards, no touchdowns. It seemed like he was never going to be used as a touchdown guy. Cam was basically the vulture there. But that was what really turned around for Jonathan Stewart. He started getting in the end zone a little bit more.
8 straight weeks of 20 or more carries. That's, hello. Be my running back.
Yeah, you want that opportunity on a high-powered offense, which the Panthers' offense should be better next year. To me, they're
no. I'm not doubting that. What I'm saying is that he really is more of a standard league play to me, though, because Stewart is a guy who, in his career, used to get passing yards.
He can do it.
But he got 16 receptions in the
just
entire
not how they're
season.
playing
I mean,
anymore.
he was a 47 reception guy in 2011. They haven't used him like that in 4 years. So for me, he is a guy that I'd put in the, if Ivory's back and Stewart's back, they're in the same boat for me. Both of them aren't going to catch many passes. Both of them are going to have guys that switch. I mean, Artis Payne seems like a talented enough back to take some snaps away from Stewart. I'm okay with Stewart. I like the offense.
I like Stewart a lot.
He was somebody who was very consistent no matter who he played, top 16, bottom 16. And you always like a running back. Look at Alfred Morris when he had RG3 running the read option. You love running backs with the read option because you get opportunities to break off big plays when the defense guesses wrong.
Yeah, that's true. LaShawn McCoy, The next guy, to me, was a pleasant surprise. Obviously,
Yeah, I'm
Didn't
with you.
surprise me.
No,
well,
he
I
didn't
know
know.
you were
I know, I'm
very
just-
high on him. I think you pegged him very well. Obviously, the injuries were a burden for fantasy owners, very annoying. Every time that you thought you'd just be able to rely on him and roll through, it was like, oh, now he's out. But he still played 13 games, so it was just bad timing on the injuries and a little bit beat up. But he was very consistent. He was our sixth best, most consistent running back, even though he was the 17th overall back and missed 3 games. That's what you're looking for when you have to spend a high pick to get a running back. And sometimes you didn't have to spend a super high pick for LaShawn McCoy this year.
Yeah, he did drop. He wasn't a guy I was super high on this year. He was still a running back 1 for me, but it did appear the guy had been touching the ball over 300 times a year in Philadelphia. Maybe that caught up with him a little bit with the injuries this year. And the Bills' offensive line was better. I'm with Jason. He was. I was very pleased to see Shady McCoy back, getting, and he looked like the old Shady, so to speak, where when he was actually on the field. But he was elusive. He was fast, and he did his damage to the outside. It wasn't really grinded up the middle. The question for LaShawn McCoy is, I know he's the main guy in Buffalo next year, but you have to imagine that Carlos Williams will be involved next year, and more so than he was this year, in my opinion.
And now we're getting to the point, too, where we talk about these running backs, and you get into these names where you're like, oh, wow, he finished there. Oh, wow. And that tells you why we draft running backs high. You draft running backs high because there really are only a certain amount of guys who, look, the next 3 names on the list are DeMarco Murray, Ronnie Hillman, and Rashad Jennings. Okay? So these aren't guys that you wanted to run out there every week, which is why when you get a guy like a Mark Ingram, wow, the value of that is so high. So talk to me about, DeMarco Murray ended 18.
Yeah.
Did you want DeMarco Murray on your team this year?
No.
At the beginning of the year? Yes.
In a hypothetical world.
Yeah. And he started off terrible. He came back in the middle of the year and was good. There was a stretch run where DeMarco Murray was very good for fantasy. It fell apart very quickly with clearly there was a problem between him and Chip Kelly. I don't know if it was play
He
calling.
had a chip on his shoulder.
Sure. I don't know what the problem was.
Holding him down.
But DeMarco Murray came out on top because Chip Kelly is gone. So what do we see for Murray next year?
Upside.
You see the upside?
I do.
Because
I see workload.
he can't do it to the edge.
No,
Like,
he can't.
He can do it up the middle, but on
But
the
listen-
edge, he just doesn't have the speed to do it.
DeMarco Murray is a running back who needs to line up like Adrian Peterson lines up, which is like 6 or 7 yards off the line of scrimmage, not taking shotgun handoffs and trying to get the burst. That's what it was to me. If they're going to build the offense around him now, which, hey, Doug Peterson, coming over, if they build the offense around DeMarco Murray and he has something left in the tank, I can't see anything. I think it's a good situation for him.
It has to be better.
Because you need to get a guy under center and you need to hand him the ball off and block outside of this Chip Kelly offense. I think he just wasn't a fit. And so now we'll find out if he's just done or if they build around him. And there's question marks around him. I'll be thinking long and hard about DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, this is a guy that we need some more time in the offseason to see what's happening with the rest of the coaching staff changes there. Even going all the way into preseason, it's going to take a lot for me to be able to trust DeMarco Murray because of how many question marks are there. You still have Ryan Matthews behind him, who had a great year, surprisingly.
Injury prone.
In a backup role, yeah. And
saw that come out again.
So DeMarco Murray is a guy I'm not excited to have on my team. I don't know that the risk is worth that reward for next year. There's
And that all depends on draft position.
Right.
Is what you're saying. I mean, because the upside of DeMarco Murray, we've seen it.
Yeah.
We saw it behind the Dallas offensive line.
Did you just like softly say yeah when he had a career, like a record-breaking season? Let me go back. Let me just remind you.
No, it wasn't that. It was just it's now. What have you done for me lately? And DeMarco Murray looked like a worse running back.
He's 27 years old. He's coming off a season that obviously he broke the bank over, but 1,800 yards on the ground. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, which is something Peterson has done. Doug Peterson has done very efficiently with Jamal Charles in the formation of the offense. I see a lot of
but there's a guy on the team who's better at doing that.
When he can stay healthy sometimes. I don't think he's better.
Oh, absolutely.
I do not think
he
he's
is
better.
Yes, Ryan Matthews.
Why better at what?
At catching the ball?
I don't think so.
I think they're
No way.
both.
No
I think
way.
they're.
DeMarco Murray is a guy who's 50+ reception type of guy in his career and done well with it.
Yeah, they're both equally good at catching the ball. The best pass catcher there is actually Darren Sproles, who we don't know how he'll be used coming in. But what we've seen with Jamal Charles going down and kind of not knowing whether Charkandrick West and where they've got good options, multiple good options, and they're using both and hurting both fantasy value. I'm not going to be able to go into next year thinking DeMarco Murray's the guy. I think it's going to be a similar thing where maybe he leads the way in splits in carries, but he's not going to be a bell cow type of player. I just don't see that happening next year.
Even with the $13 million cap hit?
Yeah, I mean,
though he walked this guy off of the...
All the more reason. I don't think he walked him off. I think Chip Kelly walked himself right out of the job.
Well, I certainly know the ownership wanted to use DeMarco more.
I can be pretty confident that I will be lower on DeMarco Murray than you will.
And it sounds like I'll be much higher.
Yeah.
Ronnie Hillman's number 19, a guy that I'd love to hear Mike speak. Mike even, before I could get to it, a guy that Mike won't give respect to because somehow he thinks that C.J. Anderson does have 4.2 a carry. He played very well. The team thinks highly of him. You saw it on the field yesterday. He got so many more reps before C.J. Anderson did.
In the playoffs.
And he played well.
Yesterday's game was, when I was watching that, I was thinking, I need to make a note that Ronnie Hillman is really,
you know what?
He's their guy going forward.
Yeah, sure, he's.
I want an apology.
I agree with that.
I want an apology from you.
For what?
For Ronnie Hillman.
No.
Yes.
No. Did you watch the game yesterday? C.J. Anderson.
Apology.
Who was the better running back yesterday?
It's debatable.
No, it is not. Who was the better running back yesterday?
He will not do it.
No, you're not getting an apology. You can cut the music.
Because I watched the game
pathetic.
yesterday.
That's what he says every week. That's what he says every single week about Ronnie Hillman. It's funny because other people watching the games let Ronnie Hillman play. Ronnie Hillman, who averaged 7.8 yards a carry against the Chargers 2 weeks ago.
I was like, what are you talking about? C.J. Anderson wasn't
better. Good. He wasn't. Yeah, C.J. was better yesterday.
Yes.
He had a couple huge runs. C.J. Anderson moves the pile. I get that. I'm just saying Ronnie Hillman is here for a reason. Where's C.J. Anderson's name? Have you found it? Let me see. Let me look. No, we haven't read his name yet.
No, we've not.
Oh, he's not even in the... Okay, so we're talking about Ronnie Hillman at number 19.
Garbage. This is garbage and erroneous.
So going into next year, Andy, what do you think as far as the Hillman, C.J. Anderson? Is this now an official two-back system with Kubiak kind of for the first time?
They're totally fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you value?
C.J. Anderson played great second half of the year. I'm not arguing with that. I think he led the league in yards per carry in the last quarter of the season. But they have a role for Ronnie Hillman. Ronnie Hillman's different. You talking about getting to the edge? C.J. Anderson doesn't get to the edge. He doesn't. Ronnie Hillman gets to the edge. They're complementary.
What I'm talking about,
which means you should compliment him every once in a while.
I will not.
I know.
I will not. Ronnie Hillman.
Tell us he stinks so I can draft him number 1 next year.
I will not say he stinks, but I will say that C.J. Anderson is better.
All right. Well, fantasy-wise, you are wrong this year, but could be right next year. Ronnie Hillman played 16 games, 207 carries, had 7 touchdowns, 863 on the ground. He had 35 targets, a little lower than what I would have expected from him.
You did see a discrepancy between when he played the top teams and the bottom teams. He only averaged 6.8 fantasy points a game against the top half of the rushing D. He's a smaller guy. I do think C.J. Anderson is the much better back, and I wish they would use him, but I just don't think it's going to happen. It looks to me like the Broncos are completely not only fine, but they want to use both backs all game long, splitting them up thoroughly, 50-50.
I will say this. C.J. Anderson's efficiency came with Brock Osweiler under center. If they move on from Peyton Manning and they run an offense that's Kubiak style, there's still the chance that they go bell cow with C.J. Anderson. But he's proven to be a little bit easy to get banged up too, had some concussion issues and been off the field at times. There's the possibility he fulfills Mike's dreams.
Watch his weight going into camp.
I agree.
See if he's lost some weight going into camp. That would be a good report.
Speaking of worth the wait, Rashad
goodness.
Jennings
I can't even believe
is
that
number
he finished
20.
at number 20. Rashad Jennings was completely worthless. This whole year, he was a worthless fantasy running back for fantasy owners. You couldn't use him. You couldn't trust him for the vast majority of the year because they had 17 running backs.
All right, number 21.
Every game. And this is where
You're right. You're 100% right.
They used too many running backs. It was a terrible decision.
So if he's the 20th running back off the board next year, you are happy or sad? If you have him as the 20th running back off the draft board.
I'm happy because I actually think Rashad Jennings is a good running back. I've always liked Rashad Jennings. He didn't get usage, and once he got used, he was very productive. So
I always like Peter Jennings.
Going next year, I don't believe that next year they're going to have the same type of 4-way split. I mean, they very well could.
They won't.
Andre Williams. Okay, bold.
Here it comes.
Andre Williams will not be on the team next year.
I was hoping you dropped the stinks line on him.
Well, you want that? Andre Williams stinks.
There it is. So watch where he lands, guys.
Andre Williams has been very disappointing, and I just don't see a way that they can't keep using him. They can't.
So McAdoo's the head coach. Rashad Jennings
McAdoo
showed what he could McAdoo at the end of the year, and I think
someone get him a McDonald's sponsorship immediately.
If you get right, look. Rashad Jennings needs opportunity, like any running back. You give him opportunity, he's going to do more with it. They're not a bad offense. They're a great offense when they get the ball moving. You just can't have it. You can't flip a 4-sided coin and hope it lands up Rashad Jennings for the touchdown. I mean, you have to have a situation where, and Mike said, Andre Williams won't be back. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, he could be. I don't think he'll be there.
You don't got your jersey on order?
No, I put it on hold.
Peter Jennings jersey. Giovanni Bernard was number 21. We've talked about his counterpart, Jeremy Hill. So what do we say about Gio? Because he's a tough guy to own.
Weird, man. It's super.
Wouldn't you have thought he'd be better than like Woodhead the way the teams did?
Gio Bernard started the season of he was
fire.
He was a stud. He was a fantasy stud, and then the team just went away from what they were doing with Gio Bernard. Jason, do you have an explanation? Because I certainly do not.
I do have an explanation. I think a lot of it had to do with once you were getting towards the playoffs in the cold weather and Andy Dalton going down, you were forced into a more grind it down, use your defense, use your pounding running back, wear the clock out, make them more ugly games. That being said, they kind of, it was what week did Andy Dalton go down?
It wasn't until late.
It was the Steeler game.
It was week
14,
so 14,
right? Week 14.
Yeah, it was a Steeler
so
game.
Before that, from week 12 and 13, in week 12, they used Gio. He had a very bad game against the Rams. And then in week 13, they essentially went away. And that was before the Andy Dalton injury. And they stood that way the rest of the season. And Gio was pretty much worthless the second half of the season. If you told me that Gio Bernard and Sims finished back-to-back, Charles Sims, I would be shocked. And that's what happened because Gio Bernard looked like he was on pace for a great year. I thought he was just the better back there the entire first half watching film, and they chose to go away from him. Coming into this next season, I think we're going to see pretty much a 50-50 split, and I'm fine with Gio being drafted about where he finished this year. If you compare him to Charles Sims, you see some big discrepancies with snap percentages. Charles Sims was only on the field. They finished very close to each other, but Charles Sims, as far as snap counts, was 44% of snaps, and Gio was 55% of snaps.
Sims was great, man. I don't know how much people really paid attention to him because he just was not a sexy name at all. But Sims, when he was on the field,
70 targets
was great. But real quick for Gio Bernard, something we haven't mentioned, they need to find a new offensive coordinator in
Hugh
Cincinnati.
Jackson's gone.
Hugh Jackson is now the head coach of the Cleveland Browns, so that's a situation to monitor. I mean, you can't imagine that a guy will come in if the head coaching is still the same and he'll shake things up too much. But certainly an offensive coordinator will want to leave his mark, so it will be interesting to see who the hire is for the projections of Hill and Bernard.
All right, so speaking to Sims, you said he was very impressive. 70 targets is what jumps out to me. He's a guy who was very efficient with his carries. They put him in a position to do that. You've seen this with guys with burst. Their yard per carry numbers are very high, unlimited carries. It's not necessarily something that would translate in a starting role. However, this is a guy that finished in the top 24 overall during the year. He's in the same category as the Gios, as the Woodheads, as the complementary back that is efficient. Really good, a PPR value probably next year.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. 70 targets, man.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well,
Yeah.
if you look at the split, so Sims was on the field 42% of the time to Doug Martin's 57%. But when it comes to running the ball, Sims only ran the ball 27% of the time. He was really that pass-catching back. And the thing that stands out to me is the 4 receiving touchdowns. To have 4 receiving touchdowns in that kind of limited role, I don't know, that seems – I mean, look at, Gio Bernard, right? Gio Bernard had 0 receiving touchdowns and had about the same, 66 targets. So which one is the outlier there? The 4 touchdowns or the 0 touchdowns?
4 is probably a little high, but 2 would not shock me.
As I say, it's probably somewhere in the middle. Sims is interesting, though. He's 25, an offense that should be growing. So I like him in PPR a lot. Next 2 guys on the list, and we definitely want to mention some names outside the top 25 because they're names that you would have expected to be in it. But Langford and Starks are who finish out our top 24. Langford, obviously, I mean, it goes without saying maybe that with Forte's gone, Jeremy Langford becomes a prolific potential type of guy. Now, that doesn't mean, he averaged 3.6 on the year. It doesn't mean he needs and deserves the hype of hype, but he's a guy who showed that he could catch the ball, who could be an NFL running back. Where would you put Langford in your early rankings if he's the
Forte
guy?
is gone?
If he's the guy.
I would take him bottom third.
Bottom third?
Bottom of third, top
You will
of the
not
fourth.
draft
Wait,
Jeremy
what?
Langford. You will
Yeah.
not even come remotely close
That's
to
what
it.
I'm saying. You were asking, where would I draft him?
Yep.
Yeah.
Was that the question?
It was.
It
I'm
was.
just making the point
I
that
would-
is the lowest I've ever heard.
Yes, I would see him, assuming everything stays the same and Forte's gone, then I would have him as a lower-end RB1, which would put him, he's not going to get past second if that's where he's being drafted.
Totally agree. 100%. You got, obviously you have change there too, right? Adam Gase is not there. So that offense is going to see turnover and change. You got a lot of variables. Sometimes fantasy football is about angling for the good variables, and sometimes it's about reducing them. Your team, you don't want a bunch of players that all have a million variables. You might want some upside guys. You might want some consistent guys.
Fantasy football. I mean, let's break it down. Fantasy football is, can I fail less than you?
Sure. In fact, that's one way to look at it. Obviously, this year, the answer was no. You couldn't. You failed much more.
Oh, for our league?
Yeah.
Oh, what is the pot's calling me black over here? What's going on?
Look, I'm paying attention to the game that you and I played in the playoffs, not the game that I played with Jason. All right, James Starks. Oh, boy. You're so fun to own.
James Starks.
He is not a starting running back.
I
I have said it so many times, it's not even funny. They gave him the chance this year. He wasn't that. He's a good second running back. Not in fantasy teams, just in real life.
Yeah, I've always liked Starks. He disappointed me this year, despite the fact that he finished way higher than anyone would have assumed. He disappointed me because he had an opportunity to show that he was, a good enough talent to be a starting, workload guy, and he failed at that. I was really surprised to see that on the year he ended up with a higher snap percentage than Eddie Lacy. James Starks finished with 46% of the snaps to Lacy's 44% of the snaps. Going forward,
Was the factored
They were
in
back
that
to back, by the way.
Lacy
24-25.
missed a game? Is that factored in?
yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just saying, like, he had more snaps because there was a game where Lacy didn't play, right?
Well, no, it's an average of their snap percentages. So for that
Okay.
game, I mean, that would be factored in the sense that when he was out, Starks would have had a higher percentage that
Right.
game, but it's not total.
So more importantly, where do you put these guys in terms of next year? Because Starks finished a spot ahead, but Lacy was more consistent by our consistency metrics, I believe. Yeah, he was.
Yes.
He was 7 spots better. Is it just kind of like this offense will get it figured out with Jordy Nelson and Ty Montgomery and Randall Cobb and those guys back on the field?
You're leaving out Jeff Janis. We didn't even talk about Jeff Janis.
Yeah, I am.
You're leaving him out?
Or Aberdaris.
Yeah, I'm leaving him out. You're right.
Okay.
One game.
No. But I will say this.
You're so weird.
No, I'm not saying that.
Devontae Freeman,
No.
limited workload means. Oh, no, you're right. I guess you're consistent because you said that meant everything too. So never mind.
No, my point was just
Janis number one.
will he factor in at all?
No.
Well, it's
Okay.
nice that they have replacements, I think, for Devontae Adams, who stinks.
Oh, yeah, he'll be back too.
Get him out of there. Use Jeff Janis and Aberdaris in those roles. Get Ty Montgomery. Get Jordy Nelson back. I think Green
Voice
Bay's
of
gonna be
reason, by
fun.
the way, Devontae Adams is better than Jeff Janis. Just so you know.
Oh.
I mean, it's very clear on the field.
Twitter's going to be so mad at you.
No.
No.
Yes, they
That's-
will.
That's the truth.
I completely agree.
This is a truth show.
I
so.
do completely agree. I do actually think Aberdaris is the better of all three, but we're not going to get into that right now. We'll have
'Cause you
plenty
know-
of time this
yeah,
offseason
yeah,
to
sure.
do that.
All right.
That being said, Eddie Lacy and the Green Bay Packers will be better next year. Eddie Lacy is the guy they want to be able to use. He was punished at times, hurt at times, fat at times. I want to see him come in good shape to camp.
Yeah,
and-
Lacy's
Doubtful.
Lacy's conditioning coming into the preseason. I think he'll be better. I think that he's learned his lesson.
All right, guys.
That's what I'm going to choose to believe.
TJ Yeldon, due to injury, did not finish in this top area, but he was somebody who was the 12th most consistent. I like TJ Yeldon a lot more than many of these names on this list. You also have Carlos Williams, Ryan Matthews, Theo Riddick, and Antonio Andrews. Those are names that have been pulled out from this as to think about. Obviously, we didn't talk about Jamal Charles. Okay? Jamal Charles, kind of a good player. Just didn't play this year, right? So, didn't talk about
Bell.
Arian Foster, Le'Veon Bell. We will. We will talk a lot about them. We are a year-round fantasy podcast. We will be discussing all the happenings every time a guy is released. We got a lot of question marks with free agency. Arian Foster and Marshawn Lynch and the Forte and Ivory and Lamar Miller. Big names. Is there anybody that you just have to say something about at the running back position before I close out the show?
I think that the consistency factor of Antonio Andrews is interesting. He was going with the metrics of how many was he top 25, top 5, and then bottom sub running back 4. He was 29th as far as the consistency ranked in there. That's just more interesting to me for David Cobb because Antonio Andrews is a free agent. We'll see if he gets re-signed there or what they do to address the running back position at all. Because I think the Titans can quickly become a good team. I'm not huge on their coaching decision, going with malarkey.
that is a bunch of malarkey. I mean it. I mean, I just can't even believe that they went that route. They had, for the first time for the franchise, they had one of the sweetest landing spots. You got the number 1 pick. You got a franchise quarterback. Go out and get a coach who has a resume that says, I've won Super Bowls. I've done this. Because you could have got one. And now you signed your interim.
Say about Tom Coughlin?
Sure.
No,
but I'm just saying,
asking you who is the Super Bowl winning coach out there.
Well, Super Bowl or if not Super Bowl, some gusto. Like
Give
honestly,
me
I
something
think
fresh
I think
is what I want.
Something fresh. I still think Chip Kelly's a great coach. I'm sad to see him go into the NFC West. But Chip Kelly, hey, reunite him or Coughlin, I think is a good coach. Take someone out of retirement. I mean, there are coaches that would have wanted to go there, is my point. And they never gave the opportunity.
Yeah,
But-
not the most inspired pick.
Right, but the point was just that David Cobb will be an interesting middle round pick next year if he is in fact it looks like he'll be the lead running back.
All right, I don't want to muse on this forever, but I just want your opinion. I'll give you a few words to give it. Jamal Charles, do you believe in Jamal Charles next year?
Ooh.
Yes is my short answer, but I think that they're going to slow his workload down. They've
right,
got good options behind him.
Would I spend a first round pick on Jamal Charles? I think so.
I definitely would.
I think so.
That's
just
funny
curious.
because I said, yes, I believe in him, and I would not spend a first-round pick on him
Sure.
next year. So
Well,
I guess
we
maybe
will
no.
we will debate that at length. I'm just wanted to see where we're starting there. I'm starting in a place where I fully believe we've seen a track record of him, but who knows? I mean,
It's not
going to be debated throughout the fantasy kingdom. That's where we live.
Yeah.
that was supposed to be an elephant, but it was not.
No,
It's just-
and I
Terrible.
It just sounded
pretty
like
bad.
Phil Simms on
Yeah.
the broadcast.
Hey,
yesterday.
check us out. Support the show. JoinTheFoot.com. Thank you for listening. We'll be here each and every week, and we'll catch you on Tuesday.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.